Welcome back to the Hardware Unboxed News Corner. Today we're going to be talking about some news, and then a few more bits of news, and we'll wrap it up with more news. It's a standard episode of our weekly news wrap-up show, so let's get straight into it. One of the biggest stories to come out of this week is news that AMD are facing a global shortage of their Ryzen Mobile 4000 APUs, which launched earlier this year, complete with Zen 2 CPU cores and Vega GPU cores on the one die. This news first broke through the laptop maker XMG's subreddit, where the company said their ODM is facing a serious CPU shortage from AMD in Q3 of 2020. We confirmed this was the case after speaking directly with XMG and AMD this week. The rest of the statement reads, large orders that have recently been confirmed to be shipped from our ODM in the middle and end of August are now supposed to be delayed until the end of September. This is explained by a serious uptick in demand from larger brands and by what we assume bottlenecks in AMD's production capacities. Upon receiving this news on Friday, so July 31, we reached out to our corporate contacts in AMD who confirmed that this is an industry-wide shortage and there is no way around it. We currently have an order backlog with our ODM on Ryzen 7 4800H of over 1600 units. Both AMD and our ODM have confirmed that our demand has been allocated, meaning we will get these CPUs, but the goods won't reach our ODM before the end of September. Firstly, it's nice to see a laptop brand being open and honest about the situation with their devices and not succumbing to vague marketing statements. Their post on Reddit was very clear. XMG can't ship the number of AMD laptops they want to right now because their ODM can't make enough of those laptops, and that's because AMD can't supply them with enough chips. Some of XMG's laptops include the Core 15 and Core 17, which come in AMD Ryzen 4000 variants using Tongfang chassis, Tongfang being their ODM. Tongfang also supply various AMD chassis to companies like Electronics, and generally their design has been well received in the market and one of the more popular models out there. AMD has responded to this situation in a statement to WCCF Tech. They say, we are seeing unprecedented demand for our AMD Ryzen 4000 mobile series processors based on leadership performance and energy efficiency. AMD Ryzen 4000 processor sales ramped faster than any mobile processor in AMD history. We are increasing production to address the incremental demand requests from our customers for AMD Ryzen 4000 series processors and are focused on growing our footprint in the notebook market. From what we've heard, it sounds like a number of OEMs have been surprised at the performance possible with AMD's Ryzen Mobile 4000 APUs, and have also been surprised at the reception and demand among laptop buyers. This has led some OEMs to increase their orders for Renoir APUs, sending demand well above what AMD initially estimated for the series. This is both good and bad news for AMD. It's good for the company that demand has been sky high for their latest APUs, especially as AMD has struggled to gain any serious traction in the market with previous offerings. While Ryzen Mobile 3000 and 2000 products were reasonable in the U series, Ryzen 4000 with the new 8-core Zen 2 design is extremely competitive and, especially for productivity tasks, significantly outperforms Intel's offerings at the same power consumption level. The H series is also now actually worth buying, unlike with the Zen and Zen Plus APUs where the Ryzen 7 3750H was extremely underwhelming. However, it's not good that AMD is struggling to keep up with the demand, as that can lead to frustrated customers. And it's not just frustrated laptop buyers that want their new Ryzen 4000 system now, but also OEM customers that want to get new devices out the door. This situation has also likely caused some flow-on effects for the rest of AMD's Renoir lineup. We saw recently that AMD launched Ryzen 4000 desktop APUs for OEM customers only, and many at the time, including us, were wondering why AMD did not also launch these chips for DIY desktop builders. It's quite likely that the shortage of Renoir silicon saw these desktop DIY chips pushed back. We don't know that for sure, but AMD has likely prioritized the OEM and laptop markets for Renoir during this shortage so they can maximize sales and revenue. Hopefully the situation can resolve itself in due course. Having now tested a range of Ryzen Mobile 4000 APUs, I think the new lineup is highly competitive, so I'm not surprised in the demand. XMG's representative on Reddit did suggest some buyers consider their Intel offerings, which they claim deliver benefits such as better gaming performance on average and more PCIe lanes for the GPU. We're in the process of exploring that with some XMG laptops actually, so we'll see whether that's true in some future videos. Intel has suffered a significant data breach with about 20 gigabytes of confidential documents leaked online earlier today. The cache was published by Swiss software engineer Till Kottmann, who claims to have received the files from an anonymous hacker that breached Intel earlier this year. Kottmann has previously published other caches of confidential documents relating to intellectual property. We haven't personally looked into the files, but those that have say there is a huge amount of information ranging from technical documents to binaries and tools, most of which is marked as Intel Confidential or Intel Restricted Secret. The hacker responsible for sending these files to Kottmann claims they obtained them from an unsecured server, according to ZDNet. Intel has released a statement on the matter, and it reads as follows. We are investigating this situation. The information appears to come from the Intel Resource and Design Center, which hosts information for use by our customers, partners, and other external parties who have registered for access. We believe an individual with access downloaded and shared this data. So it's not clear which story is accurate here, whether it's Intel in claiming a user with file access simply broke their NDA and published the documents, or whether it was sourced from an unsecured server. Either way, this is not a good situation for Intel, as the files appear to be very sensitive. And as people dig through the data, I'm sure there will be plenty of interesting discoveries. To make matters worse, Kottmann claims this is just the first leak in a series that will deliver more Intel confidential material. So it's unclear how Intel will respond, but yeah, surely they will not be happy that these documents are now available to the public. But in better news for Intel, the company is getting very close to launching their next generation CPU architecture, Tiger Lake. Intel has scheduled 2 major events in the next month that will be used to unveil Tiger Lake, both from an architecture perspective, but also in terms of a lineup for consumer devices. We expect Tiger Lake to first come in the form of U-series CPUs, similar to Ice Lake before it, with other high-power chips being well off at this point. On August 13th, we're getting updates from our chief architect, Raja Koduri, with no details given about what this event will entail. However, we expect some sort of architecture details, particularly around the Xe GPU that is being used in Tiger Lake for the first time. We've had bits and pieces of info on Xe for a while now, but Intel are yet to give a full breakdown of what has gone into this architecture and how it's being integrated into Tiger Lake. Of course, the event could also include CPU details, given Raja heads up the new architecture, graphics, and software group at Intel. The September 2nd event is officially labeled the Tiger Lake Virtual Launch Event, so I don't think it will be any surprise what Intel plans to announce at that show. Normally, Intel would hold this as a physical event, but due to all the pandemic stuff, it is gone virtual. At this launch, you can expect a breakdown of all the Tiger Lake features as well as details on SKUs, so not too long until we see what Intel's response to Ryzen Mobile 4000 ends up being. AMD has announced 2 new 6-watt Zen APUs aimed at the education market. There's nothing particularly exciting about these parts. They both have 2 Zen CPU cores and Vega 3 graphics and are clocked quite low to fit in that 6-watt power envelope. The lower end part is the AMD 3015E. That's right, just AMD 3015E with no Ryzen or Athlon branding. It features 2 cores and 4 threads, but has just a base clock of 1.2 GHz, boost up to 2.3 GHz, and a low 600 MHz GPU frequency. It also only supports single-channel DDR4 1600 memory, so this is categorically an entry-level product and perhaps the lowest spec Zen configuration we've seen. The higher end part is the AMD 3020E. What's interesting here is AMD has dropped SMT, so we get just 2 cores and 2 threads with this higher named part. However, everything else is improved. Boost clocks are now up to 2.6 GHz, the GPU clocks up to 1000 MHz on the same 3 compute units, and we get dual channel DDR4 2400 memory support. So despite that drop of SMT, this should be a much faster product. These 2 parts join the Athlon Silver 3050E in AMD's 6-watt lineup, the 3050E essentially being a 3020E with higher boost clocks again. The target market here are education-focused low-end devices, including Lenovo's new 100E and 300E laptops, which both use the 3015E. Other features of those laptops include stuff like 4 GB of RAM, 64 GB of storage, and 1366 by 768 display. So that's the sort of device that we're talking about. AMD has also launched this week a series of Radeon Pro GPUs, which are destined for the latest Apple iMacs and likely nothing else. The lineup includes parts like the Radeon Pro 5700 XT and Radeon Pro 5500 XT, which feature the same compute unit counts as AMD's RX lineup of similar names. There are some differences though. The Radeon Pro 5700 XT features 16GB of GDDR6 memory, double that available on the RX 5700 XT, although the other three GPUs in the lineup have the same memory configuration. That extra memory is of course useful for professional applications, which is the target market of the Pro GPUs. Clock speeds appear to be lower for the Pro series as well. The RX 5700 XT generally achieves 9.8 teraflops or thereabouts under boost, whereas the Pro 5700 XT is rated for just 7.6 teraflops. So we don't have actual clock speed information here, but that would suggest a clock reduction. And this could be to fit within the limited thermal capabilities of Apple's iMac. Asus has announced what they are calling the world's first HDMI 2.1 certified gaming monitors, which may or may not actually be the first HDMI 2.1 monitors by the time they are released. No specific model names are being used here, but Asus do state they will have 27, 32 and 43-inch offerings in the holiday season in time for next generation consoles. It's very likely that all three models will be new 4K 144Hz monitors, which would benefit from HDMI 2.1 capabilities and allow next-gen consoles to hook up and run at 120Hz. HDMI 2.0 currently tops out at 4K 60Hz, while DisplayPort is capable of 4K 144Hz if DisplayStream compression is used. Of course, consoles and most other non-PC devices don't use DisplayPort, so that's where HDMI 2.1 will come in handy. I think we'll very quickly see HDMI 2.1 become a required feature on monitors, especially at 4K, but also across other tiers. One other benefit of HDMI 2.1 is the integration of VRR support. Yes, variable refresh rate has been available with HDMI 2.0B for a while now, but it's unclear whether next-gen consoles will support variable refresh over HDMI 2.1 in a backwards compatible way. If not, HDMI 2.1 will be a big selling point for next-gen displays. One of Germany's largest retailers, Mindfactory, has published RMA data for their graphics card sales, split into individual models so we can get a comprehensive look at which cards, which brands and which GPUs are the least reliable. This data was first published on news sites a few days ago, but has since been updated to be even more comprehensive. The big story out of this data is that AMD GPUs are returned at a somewhat higher rate than Nvidia GPUs overall. At Mindfactory, from over 100,000 units sold, the retailer saw a 2.47% RMA rate for Nvidia GPUs compared to a 3.22% RMA rate for AMD GPUs from 50,000 units sold. This suggests that AMD cards are returned at a 30% higher rate than Nvidia cards, with Nvidia holding an overall sales share of 70.7%, although this only is comparing the 1660 Ti and above to the 5500 XT and above, so it doesn't include lower end or older models from either brand. Despite AMD seeing a higher return rate overall, the top two worst GPUs for RMAs were both from Nvidia, the RTX 2080 Ti and the RTX 2070, with return rates of 5.17% and 4.60% respectively. It's possible and quite likely that the issues that plagued early GeForce 20 series models contributed to those return rates, as Nvidia's super GPUs saw far lower RMA rates of below 2%. With AMD GPUs, there is a similar phenomenon where higher tier products are returned more, with the RX 5700 XT topping the charts with a 3.51% RMA rate. RMA rates have dropped with each successive GPU launch. The 5600 XT and 5500 XT returned far fewer times, admittedly from far lower sales as well. One possible candidate for the higher return rate here are AMD's driver issues, which plagued the launch of the 5700 and 5700 XT in particular. The least reliable brand for AMD cards was PowerColor, followed by XFX, while MSI and ASRock were the most reliable based on RMA rates according to this data. On the Nvidia side, what's interesting is that Gainwood and Palette both have the highest RMA rate, while KFA2 has the lowest of the brands with more than 1,000 unit sales. All three of those brands are actually the same company. Asus data is not shown here at all for any GPU, as Mindfactory don't stock any Asus products, same with EVGA, another larger brand for North American customers. And final topic for this week, Intel is set to launch a series of KA processors However, these are not new CPU SKUs. Instead, as Intel confirmed to Tom's Hardware, they are merely a partner promotion with KA designating an ordering code specifically for this promotion. What promotion are we talking about? Well, it looks like Intel are partnering with Marvel for an Avengers Special Edition series of Intel CPUs, which seems to amount to a unique box as seen in this quite pixelated image. It appears as though all K-series chips from the Core i5-10600K through to the Core i9-10900K will get this special edition KA packaging, including the newly announced Core i9-10850K that we talked about last week. So nothing too exciting here. You are just getting the same CPUs we've had previously, but with new packaging. That's it for this week's News Corner. As always, you can subscribe to get this segment in your inbox every week or thereabouts. We also have our Patreon page if you're interested in signing up, supporting the channel, and getting access to things like our Discord chat, monthly live streams, and behind the scenes videos. That's it. I'll see you in the next one.